Jai.
ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai.
Jai.
Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai.
Jai.
Vrindavan Dham ki jai.
Jai.
Shyantar Dweep Mayapur Simanta Dweep Godrum Dweep Madhya Dweep Kola Dweep Ritu Dweep Janu Dweep Modadum Dweep Rudratmik Shri Navadweep Dhama ki jai.
Jai.
Ganga Mai ki jai.
Jai.
Yamuna Mai ki jai.
Jai.
Tulsi Devi ki jai.
Jai.
Bhakti Devi ki jai.
Jai.
Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutare Srimate Bhaktivedanta Shami Iti Namane. Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
We're studying Caitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela chapter 7. We're on text number 63.
ইহা আইসো শুনো হো শ্রীপাদ অপবিত্র স্থানে বৈশ কিবা অবসাদ.
Translation. Please come here. Please come here, Your Holiness. Why do you sit in that unclean place? What has caused your lamentation? Purport. Here is the distinction between Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Prakashananda Saraswati. In the material world, everyone wants to introduce himself as very important and great. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced himself very humbly and meekly. The Mayavadis were sitting in an exalted position, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat in a place which was not even clean. Therefore, the Mayavadi sannyasis thought that he must have been aggrieved for some reason, and Prakashananda Saraswati inquired about the cause for his lamentation. So was Lord Chaitanya grieving for some reason?
No, he was not really grieving. He
Okay.
appeared grieved
And how did he appear grieved?
because he was like sitting in a position. The body language showed out that he was grieving.
Particularly, he was sitting in a dirty place, right?
Yeah, he was sitting in a dirty place. So, and
Yes.
he did not make a big show of himself, like, "Oh, I have arrived," kind of a grandiose statement.
Yes, you've. I think now when they, if you've attended Indian weddings lately,
Yeah, I have.
when the bride and the groom enter, that's almost like a rock show.
Yeah,
You
but
notice that?
yeah. It's a rock show, but it's a one-day wedding for the bride to make her feel good before she knows what she's going to enter into hell.
As you like, but Lord, this is quite a contrast here. Text 64.
Prabhuji,
Yeah.
could it be like he was thinking about these Mayavadis are not, understanding the things, what is the real things, and thinking in that mind towards the, like they are in ignorance kind of. So in thinking that way, maybe he is also lamenting.
With them.
Certainly that's possible. We don't have any information. I mean, we know that before. We knew that, in the information leading up to this pastime, which is correct. And so it could be at this time he was in that sense, but we don't have any specific information at that point in time. So it's certainly a possibility, but we don't know that. Yeah, for sure. Text 64.
প্রভু কহে আমি হই হীন সম্প্রদায় তোমার সবার সভায় বসিতে না জুয়ায়
The Lord replied, I belong to a lower order of sannyasis. Therefore, I do not deserve to sit with you. Purport. Mayavadi sannyasis are always very puffed up because of their knowledge of Sanskrit and because they belong to the Shankara Sampradaya. They are always under the impression that unless one is a Brahmin and a very good Sanskrit scholar, especially in grammar, one cannot accept the renounced order of life nor become a preacher. Mayavadi sannyasis always misinterpret all the Shastras with their word jugglery and grammatical compositions. Yet, Sripad Shankaracharya himself condemned such jugglery of words in the verse Prapte sanihite khalu morane nahi rakshate dukrin korane. Dukrin refers to suffixes and prefixes in Sanskrit grammar. Shankaracharya warned his disciples that if they concerned themselves only with the principles of grammar, not worshipping Govinda, they were fools who would never be saved. Yet in spite of Sripad Shankaracharya's instructions, foolish Mayavadi sannyasis are always busy juggling words on the basis of strict Sanskrit grammar.
So Shankaracharya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they both lived together at the same time?
No. Shankaracharya, Sripad Shankaracharya, appeared in the 8th century, and so at that time, mostly the prevalent outlook of religion all over India, not everybody, but it was predominant, was Buddhist philosophy. And they had rejected the Vedas. So Shankaracharya, who was actually an incarnation of Lord Shiva himself, came and he preached, he taught people to come back to the Vedas, but with a Buddhistic or impersonal idea, with an impersonal interpretation of the Vedic scriptures, which was more consistent or more amenable to the Buddhists' views. So that was 600 years before, but many people still, even to this day, they accept Sripad Shankaracharya as being the final word in Vedic knowledge. Although after Shankaracharya and before Lord Chaitanya, there were several important Vaishnavacharyas, for example, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, who refuted Shankaracharya's monistic Advaita philosophy. So first one was Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya, he established Vishishtadvaita. Vishishtadvaita, Ramanuja is the leader of the Sri Vaishnavas in South India. So Vishishtadvait means qualified monism, not exact, not okay. There was monism, but qualified monism, and then there was Vishnu Swami and Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya said Dvaitavad. Vishnu Swami said Shuddhadvait, purified monism, not really monism, purified monism. So they all said different things. So, but still, even at the 600 years later, the Mayavadi, those who were in the Mayavadi school, generally they were following Sripad Shankaracharya's teachings.
So the author of this book, Caitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Maharaj, is he in support of Shankaracharya, Sripada Shankaracharya?
No.
But why is he talking good things about Shankaracharya then?
Sripad Shankaracharya was actually doing the work of bringing people back to the Vedic conclusion. Most people didn't understand fully his work, so there were parts of his teaching that people ignored, like this part, this specific instruction he gave. It starts out Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Mudhamate. Said, worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda, you fools, right? That's what he's saying. So there were times that he came out of his impersonalistic view and established and encouraged Krishna consciousness, devotional service. But you know what the Mayavadi interpretation of that verse is? They say it's sarcastic. Bhaja Govinda, you fools, are you Bhaja Govinda, you fools? Like that. So anyway, because he was doing work on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and because he was a covered personalist, there are many parts of his teachings that could be understood as personal. Also, he said in his commentary, he begins his commentary, Narayana Parovyaktat. Usually, the Mayavadis say this world is false, and only Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. But Shankaracharya, Sripad Shankaracharya said Narayan, which means the Supreme Personality of Godhead is beyond this material manifestation. So that's consistent with Vaishnava teaching as well. So something like, also we were reading previously that Lord Chaitanya preached to the Muslims. There were some Pathans who came, and he preached to them on the basis of the Quran. Now, in the Quran, usually people take it that if you have the God has a form, they smash it. But based on the actually the true understanding of every religion is there's the Supreme Personality of Godhead with form, qualities, personality, names. But because the interpretation has been emphasized otherwise, people become misguided. So in the same way, Shankaracharya has good instructions, but they've been ignored in favor of the monistic side. Let me finish this purport here. Mayavadi sannyasis are very puffed up if they hold the elevated titles Tirtha, Ashram, and Saraswati. Even among Mayavadis, those who belong to other sampradayas and hold other titles such as Varn, Aranya, Bharati, etc., are considered to be lower grade sannyasis. So there's a pecking order. Just like in medical practice, there's a pecking order, the lowest, the highest are like heart surgeons and
Plastic surgery.
Yeah, highest is, yeah. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas from the Bharati Sampradaya, and thus he considered himself a lower sannyasi than Prakashananda Saraswati. So Saraswati is a high-class sannyasi, at least from a material point of view. To remain distinct from Vaishnava sannyasis, let me finish. To remain distinct from Vaishnava sannyasis, the sannyasis of the Mayavadi Sampradaya always think themselves to be situated in a very elevated spiritual order. But Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in order to teach them how to become humble and meek, accepted himself as belonging to a lower sampradaya of sannyasis. Thus, he wanted to point out clearly that a sannyasi is one who is advanced in spiritual knowledge. One who is advanced in spiritual knowledge should be accepted as occupying a better position than those who lack such knowledge. Oh, it goes on.
So I have a question. Based on what factor are these various rankings made? Like lower ranking, Saraswati, one, whatever it is. Based on what factor are these different rankings made for these elevated people?
Tradition.
So what is the tradition?
Whatever it was at the time. Just like in different parts of India, there are all different kinds of traditions. Like, there's Kayastas in Bengal. We were reading about the Kayastas. So some places they're accepted as almost like Brahmins, and sometimes they're accepted as Shudras by the tradition around here. Tradition. Sometimes someone with a white complexion is considered, oh, they're better than a darker complexion by just some tradition, not for any spiritual necessarily thing. Because if someone is a Saraswati or a Bharati, if they're actually a sannyasi and they actually know the science of Krishna, what's the difference?
Isn't it based on the philosophy?
What philosophy?
These categories are made based on the different philosophies.
Not that I know that. Do you know that somewhere? I've never heard
Which
that.
one? I think I'm referring to Vaishnava, impersonal and personal and all.
That's different. But my understanding of the question was in terms of Saraswati versus Bharati or Ashram or Tirtha and these things, these kind of titles.
In first Adi Lila, second chapter, it is mentioned the types of brahmacharis, the types of sannyasis.
Yeah, that's a different thing. There's four stages of sannyas: Kutichak, Bahudak, Paribrajak and Paramhans. Those are four stages of sannyas, but this is this is like, because Lord Chaitanya's sannyas guru, the sannyasi who initiated him into the sannyas order, was a Bharati. He's considered a Bharati by that. So, but the four stages of sannyas are different. The four stages, Kutichak means someone's renounced the family. They go outside the village and live in a hut, and someone brings them their food, and they dedicate their study to their time to spiritual activities, study, chanting, meditation, that stuff. That's first stage, Kutichak. Second stage, Bahudak. Bahudak, they say, well, why should I just, get to have people serve me? So they go door to door in the village begging for alms. That's called Madhukari. Madhukari. Not too many people practice that nowadays, at least in this country. But so then they go to door, and by going door to door, they meet all kinds of people, and sometimes they're cursed at, or sometimes they get a little donation, and they don't take too much from any one person. That's Bahudak. Then Paribrajak Acharya, they give up their attachment to the village or their background, and they travel extensively, and wherever they go, they try to teach Krishna consciousness. And then Paramahansa, the last stage, is fully Krishna conscious, fully aware of Krishna at all times, and they're doing whatever they do in service to Krishna. So 4 stages of sannyas are different than these Saraswati, Bharati. Those are just lineages of sannyasis. And there might be other differentiations but I'm not aware of them. I've never heard that specifically. And so my understanding is that there's a traditional, in the material world, everybody's always trying to be better than everybody else, isn't it? So, if a person can think, oh, I've got a little more money than that person, I'm better. I got a little more education than that person, I'm better. I got a little more, I look better than this person. Then any way we can to get a little edge up on the next person, let's take that. So even it's reflected in the material, in that material mentality is reflected in even in the sannyas arrangement. So Lord Chaitanya, as Srila Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport, he's showing that the real, more important than your category of sannyasi is to become humble, because the first sign of knowledge, Krishna describes in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, what are the symptoms of knowledge? And you know what those symptoms are? How does it start? Amanitvam madambitvam. Ready to give respect to others and not requiring respect for oneself. Amanit, that's the symptom of knowledge. Yeah. And then he says, janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshanudarshanam. Always being aware, conscious of the dangers of birth, death, old age, disease. These are some of the symptoms of knowledge.
But if you are humble and if you are not speaking for yourself, if you are not advocating for yourself, how would anybody know if you have knowledge or not?
Just because one is humble doesn't mean one does not speak. Speaking, in fact, speaking can be a very great sign of humility. If someone is flying a kite on the roof and is about to fall off because they're looking at the kite, and you say stop, that's humility. That's but even though they may not like it, so just humble. There's a material concept of humble, which is don't speak up or anything like that. That's not what we're talking about. Actually, understanding our position as being very tiny, very infinitesimal servant of the Supreme Lord. So we don't hopefully we don't think of ourselves as very advanced, very great, because as soon as one starts to think of one's very important, very great, very advanced, then that's a perfect candidate to be influenced by Maya. That is already a sign that one is influenced by Maya. As they say, the bigger we are, the harder we fall. So so humility doesn't mean not speaking, but speaking not our own speculative ideas or thinking that we're very great, but to speak what Krishna says and understanding what Krishna says and the spiritual master says. That's it.
Thank you. Got it. Thank you so much.
A brahmachari is supposed to engage in the service. Oh, sorry. Mayavadi sannyasis always think themselves as real sannyasis and consider sannyasis of the Vaishnava order to be brahmacharis. Somebody's got their thing on. I think it's Krishna Kirtan.
No, Chatterjee Prabhu.
Oh, it's Chatterjee? Okay. A brahmachari is supposed to engage in the service of a sannyasi and accept him as his guru. Mayavadi sannyasis therefore declare themselves to be not only gurus, but Jagat gurus, or the spiritual masters of the entire world, although of course they cannot see the entire world. Sometimes they dress gorgeously and travel on the backs of elephants in processions, and thus they are always puffed up, accepting themselves as Jagat gurus. Sri Rupa Goswami, however, has explained that Jagat Guru properly refers to one who is the controller of his tongue, mind, words, belly, genitals, and anger. Pritivimsa Shishyat, such a Jagat Guru is completely fit to make disciples all over the world. Due to false prestige, Mayavadi sannyasis who do not have these qualifications sometimes harass and blaspheme a Vaishnava sannyasi who humbly engages in the service of the Lord. You know that verse that Srila Prabhupada is quoting about the tongue, mind, belly, genitals, etc.? Who knows that verse? Mother Sudevi, aren't you there?
Vacha vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jiva vegam, parapasta vegam.
Yes. Continue. Vacho vegam. Go ahead.
Etan vegan viseta dira sarvamatman putivim sasisya.
So vacho vegam means the urge to speak, because you can go to the library, and how many books are in the library? Thousands and thousands of books. Vacho vegam. We have an urge to speak, and now, in the olden days, You might have one telephone in your room, in your house, right? But the telecommunications companies, they thought, well, why just one telephone? Everybody's got to talk, so everybody's got to have a cell phone, right? That's called vacho vegam, urge to speak. What we have to say is very important. Although, 50 years ago, everybody got along with one phone in the family. Vacho vegam. We have to put our words first. Manasa krodha vegam, mind and anger. Vacho vegam, manasa, the pushing of the words, pushing of the mind, pushing of anger. A jiva vegam, pushing of the tongue. I'd like to taste all that different stuff. Jiva vegam, udoro pasta vegam, stomach, the belly, fill it, and genital for sex life. Etan vegam yo vishaheta dira. If someone can control those 6 urges, evam pritivim shashishyat, they can become a spiritual master of the whole world. Pritivim, of the whole world.
But ideally, if I don't want to own a cell phone these days, I will be left behind, Prabhu. I have to run with the rest of the world. I cannot live in some, in the past, like how my childhood went when I'm living in 2021. Unfortunately or fortunately, unfortunately, I had to just
one
go.
can use a cell phone, but if you use, the thing is to use whatever is given to us in the service of Krishna. We don't say renounce, but use everything we have in the service of the Supreme Lord. That's the point. Even if you might use it for your job or your other things too. Okay, so at least give something, some portion to Krishna, as is recommended. Anyway, I was given the example of Vacho Vegam, and it's true. It's true that we have to talk. Everyone wants to talk. That's true. 665.
আপনে প্রকাশ আনন্দ হাতেতে ধরিয়া বসাইলা সভা মধ্যে সম্মান করিয়া।
Prakashananda Saraswati, however, caught Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally by the hand and seated him with great respect in the midst of the assembly. Purport. The respectful behavior of Prakashananda Saraswati towards Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very much to be appreciated. Such behavior is calculated to be agyata sukriti, or pious activities that one executes without his knowledge. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very tactfully gave Prakashananda Saraswati an opportunity to advance in agyata sukriti, so that in the future he might actually become a Vaishnav sannyasi. So what is that agyata sukriti here?
Sukriti means good deeds that we have done in the past.
Let someone else answer.
Prakashananda Saraswati taking Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to a better seat.
Yes, showing respect to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because what was Prakashananda Saraswati doing previously? You don't remember?
They were mocking the Vaishnavas.
Exactly, they were mocking specifically Lord Chaitanya. I mean, he was not to his face. They weren't doing it to his face. That's what usually happens. People, mock you or criticize you behind the back. But that's what he was doing. Prakashananda Saraswati was, to his followers and to his associates, was criticizing and stabbing him in the back. But now, coming forward, with meeting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's treating him in a respectful way. So this doesn't mean that he's a fully purified person. No, he's still just a short time ago was criticizing him like anything. But now, for his benefit, Lord Chaitanya is coming, and because now Prakashananda Saraswati is giving him some respect, which is one of the reasons Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, if you remember, because Mayavadis and others, they at least they give a little respect to sannyasis, at least face to face. So here he's coming, so he's giving Prakashananda Saraswati the opportunity for making some advancement, because Krishna consciousness or bhakti yoga works knowingly or unknowingly. A person may bow down in front of the deity. They may not know, but still they'll get the benefit. It's like if a child puts his or her hand in the fire, that because of the child it doesn't burn, right? Correct?
No, that's not the case.
No. Okay, because it works. It works whether it's knowingly or unknowingly. It works. The fire will burn the finger of the child. So similarly, knowingly or unknowingly, engaging in Krishna consciousness and service to Krishna has its effect. Of course, if it's knowingly, it's more lasting, and it's likely that it'll last more, continue. But still, the effect is there. Anybody? Can you anyone give an example of a person or an example of Agyata Sukriti having astounding effects?
I can share one.
Valmiki.
Somebody eating prasadam, they don't know it's prasadam.
Yes, that's true. Yes. Anyone else?
Prabhuji, in fact, Jamila got Agyatasakriti from the previous karma, what in the previous life he accumulated, the pious karma, pious things. So that piousness automatically by taking even his son name as Narayan, he got that without knowing that he got the mercy of God, mercy of Lord.
Yes, he benefited by from his early life. He was following the religious principles and was a devotee. He gave that up, but then he, inspired by the Lord, he named his youngest son Narayan, and so he was always saying Narayan. So that's a good. There's another example I was thinking about.
Migrari.
Migari, or how about Balmiki? Balmiki, what happened with Balmiki?
Yeah.
Narada.
He was
He
was a hunter.
Yeah, Narada. He had to stop his sinful activities. But he was instructed to chant. What was he chanting?
Mara.
Yeah, Mara. But because it associated with Ram, it became Ram. He got that benefit, became an elevated Muni. There's also an example given by Haridas Thakur of a Muslim or actually a Yavana who is gored by a bull and chants Haram, and he gets the benefit of that chanting. So Agyata Sukriti is there many times. So it works. It's not something just in the mind. It actually works.
And not everybody comes into a spiritual path or a spiritual thinking. They must have done, like, there are so many people like who are God conscious and slash spirituality conscious. So I believe people must have done some good karma, good sukriti, knowingly or unknowingly, ajnata or non-ajnata. Could that be one of the reasons why people get drawn to spirituality?
Well, as you mentioned, there's all different kinds of spirituality, but in Krishna consciousness or bhakti, the way one gets bhakti is through the intercession of a Vaishnava. Chadiya Vaishnav Seva Nishtar Payeche Keba. Without the mercy of a devotee, and we're talking about bhakti spiritual. There's different kinds of spirituality, but from bhakti, you can't get it except from a devotee. And here, Lord Chaitanya is taking the position, even though he's Krishna himself, he's taking the position of a devotee. Text 66.
পুছিল তোমার নাম শ্রীকৃষ্ণ চৈতন্য কেশব ভারতীর শিষ্য তাতে তুমি ধন্য.
Prakashananda Saraswati then said, I understand that your name is Sri Krishna Chaitanya. You are a disciple of Sri Keshava Bharati, and therefore you are glorious.
সাম্প্রদায়িক সন্ন্যাসী তুমি রহ এই গ্রামে, কি কারণে আমা সবার না করো দর্শনে?
You belong to our Shankaracharya and live in our village, Varanasi. Why then do you not associate with us? Why is it that you avoid even seeing us? Purport. A Vaishnav sannyasi, or a Vaishnav in the second stage of advancement in spiritual knowledge, can understand 4 principles, namely the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the devotees, the innocent, and the jealous. And he behaves differently with each. He tries to increase his love for Godhead, make friendship with devotees, and preach Krishna consciousness among the innocent, but he avoids the jealous or envious of the Krishna consciousness movement. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself exemplified such behavior, and this is why Prakashananda Saraswati inquired why he did not associate or even talk with them. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirmed by example that a preacher of Krishna consciousness movement generally should not waste his time talking with Mayavadi sannyasis. But when there are arguments on the basis of Shastra, a Vaishnav must come forward to talk and defeat them in philosophy. According to Mayavadi sannyasis, only one who takes sannyas in the disciplic succession from Shankaracharya is a Vedic sannyasi. Sometimes it is challenged that the sannyasis who are preaching in Krishna consciousness movement are not genuine because they do not belong to Brahmin families. For Mayavadis do not offer sannyas to one who does not belong to a Brahmin family by birth. Unfortunately, however, they do not know that at present everyone is born a Shudra. Kalau Shudra Sambhava. It is to be understood that there are no Brahmins in this age because those who claim to be Brahmins simply on the basis of birthright do not have Brahminical qualifications. However, even if one is born in a non-Brahmin family, if he has the Brahminical qualifications, he should be accepted as a Brahmin, as confirmed by Srila Narad Muni and the great saint Sridhar Swami. This is also stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Both Narad and Sridhar Swami completely agree that one cannot be a Brahmin by birthright, but must possess the qualities of a Brahmin. Thus, in our Krishna consciousness movement, we never offer the sannyas order to a person whom we do not find to be qualified in terms of prescribed Brahminical principles. Although it is a fact that unless one is a Brahmin, he cannot become a sannyasi, it is not a valid principle that an unqualified man who is born in a Brahmin family is a Brahmin, whereas a Brahminically qualified person born in a non-Brahmin family cannot be accepted. The Krishna consciousness movement strictly follows the injunctions of Srimad Bhagavatam, avoiding misleading heresy and manufactured conclusions. So that verse there, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. Kalau Shudra Sambhava means in this age of Kali, everyone is born Shudra. But then the next line is Sanskara Bhaved Dvija. And by sanskara, one becomes twice born. Twice born can be Brahmin, Kshatriya, or Vaishya. Veda Patat Bhaved Vipra. And by study of the Vedas, one becomes a Vipra. Brahma Janatiti Brahman. And someone who actually knows God. That is really a Brahmin. If one knows God, what is the sign or symptom of knowing God? One engages in devotional service. Krishna says that in Bhagavad-Gita. You know the verse, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Matta Sarvam Pravartate Iti Matva Bhajante Mam Buddhabhava Samandita. I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me, Krishna says. The wise who know this they engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Okay, what's the next verse?
সন্ন্যাসী হইয়া করো নর্তন গায়ন ভাবুক সব সঙ্গে লনা করো সংকীর্তন
You are a sannyasi. Why then do you indulge in chanting and dancing, engaging in your Sankirtan movement in the company of fanatics? Purport. This is a challenge by Prakashananda Saraswati to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhashya that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the object of Vedanta philosophical research, has very kindly determined who is an appropriate candidate for study of Vedanta philosophy. The first qualification of such a candidate is expressed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshastaka, Trinadapi Sunichena Tororapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. This statement indicates that one can hear or speak about Vedanta philosophy through the disciplic succession. One must be very humble and meek, more tolerant than a tree and more humble than the grass. One should not claim respect for himself, but should be prepared to give all respect to others. One must have these qualifications to be eligible to understand Vedic knowledge. Hare Krishna. Comments, questions? This is a very good part of the Caitanya Charitamrita. They're all good, but this is especially. We did a play on this aspect of the Lord Chaitanya's pastimes last Gaur Purnima, in this particular area, if you remember. Mother Sudevi, you have any comments? Are you still there? Oh, Mother Sangeeta is there. Do you have any comments?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay, that's all right. Just in case.
Thank you, but I don't. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishnu Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Vishnu Prabhu. This
Thank you.
very, very important points that you brought out. Thank you so much. I want to remind everybody to today's break fast from Ekadasi. If you haven't broken fast today, I think it's till 10:17 or so. We have to break fast. Also tonight we have a Bhagavad-Gita reading starting at 5 o'clock to 5:30. So we hope you can join us for that as well.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the class.
Thank you, Vishnu.